All right, number 12. What up? That's like half as many as if I do 24, which is like half as many as if I do 48, which is like half as many if I do 96, which is like half.
Missing someone.
Oh God, just saying that made me think, am I gonna do that many? Am I gonna hit 100 of these things? I don't know. My go-to's probably not. So I'm assuming that this shoulder strap is showing up in the video here. And that's because I'm carrying around my new toy that I got in the mail today. It is a 64-ounce vacuum insulated double steel wall, whatever water bottle. I bought a straw lid for it that flips up like so. And I got this cool carrying case that keeps it from getting all banged up, and comes with both just a handle and a shoulder strap, which are both removable. I'm very excited to be carrying around a half gallon of water with me at all times. First off, I'm more than ecstatic to have the right side of my upper body become buff while the left side stays completely flabby. But in all seriousness, I was carrying around a water bottle for a while that I got at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. It was a reusable one that was 16 ounces. And I constantly felt underhydrated because I think I was only drinking 1 or 2 of them a day. And it just wasn't enough for, I guess, my daily activity. I was feeling super thirsty, I was getting tired. But more than anything else, I've been thirsty all the time. I noticed that when I'm thirsty and I don't have, you know, nice cold water readily available right there, I tend to go for whatever's gonna taste the best. And no matter how many times I think I'm gonna quit soda or sugary drinks, if I'm really thirsty and it's there and easy, it's what I end up going for. But it's harder to make that call when I have water readily available. And the bottle I bought isn't the ridiculously expensive Hydro Flask brand. I think it's called Simple Modern. I don't know, I found it on Amazon. It's pretty highly reviewed. It's my money to waste. Let's see if it works or not. Do they still make Waffle Crisp? I heard someone mention Waffle Crisp last night. Now all I can think about is Waffle Crisp. Probably best if they don't make it, because I'm sure it's terrible for you. I want some Waffle Crisp.
You'll love my Waffle Crisp.
So I have a trip coming up in roughly 2 months. I'm going to Yosemite with my girlfriend in September. And I've been brainstorming ideas to pad out that trip with more places and things that I've wanted to see on the way up and maybe a little past that area. Like, I want to go back to Santa Cruz. I've only been to Santa Cruz, I think, 2 times, and I haven't seen much of it. I know just driving in and out and seeing it through a car window, it's beautiful. But more than anything else, there was this cafe that I went to that I was there called the Saturn Cafe. That was like a vegan, Irish, Mexican fusion diner that was sci-fi and 50s themed. Oh yeah, it was all over the place. We'll probably stop there, that makes sense. And I'd love to shoot some stuff in Yosemite. Not with a gun, with my camera. I'd love to get some footage of Yosemite. And I've been thinking about what kind of equipment I'd like to bring. My T3i is probably gonna be what I bring up, but I'm getting more and more down on the footage that comes out of my T3i. A lot of the time, it's the autofocus during video, or the lack of, that I don't like. But of course, that's also a crutch. But when you're shooting on the fly, it's a really nice crutch. And I've been debating whether or not to throw down the money on like a Canon 80D or upgrade my cell phone to like a Galaxy S8. Because the footage coming off the S8 is really impressive, but I'm kind of holding out for the specs on the Note 8 and the potential iPhone 8, 9, 8, I don't remember where they're at, the new iPhone. The other piece of equipment that I would really like to have, but what camera I get helps decide which piece of equipment to get, is a gimbal. Those smooth handheld shots would be amazing. But of course, I've also recently learned that there's a attachment or little like hard shell accessory you can get for the DJI Mavic Pro that allows you to slide in the folded up drone into a handheld rig and then shoot handheld 3-axis gimbal footage using the drone's gimbal. The downfall of that is it doesn't record audio, but for cool sweeping gimbal shots, that's maybe not the end of the world. But if I'm ever gonna do any walk and talk stuff like this or vlog style, it would be nice to have a gimbal that works for that as well. Meaning a gimbal that holds a camera that records audio. And turning around, but that attachment for the drone is only like 40-50 bucks. So maybe it's a drone and the attachment and a camera and a gimbal. Because I have like 3,000 bucks laying around, right? Right? Fuck. Another place I'd like to see on the way up or around there is San Francisco. I've been to San Francisco a few times. But most of the time it was with my family, which means you're on someone else's agenda and you're usually a kid, so you don't get much of a say. And the other couple times I was with a bigger group of friends, which again puts you on someone else's agenda, which isn't the end of the world. I loved it. It's really fun to travel with your friends. But I think just balancing what me and my girlfriend both want to do there would be a little bit more relaxing, a little bit more fun. Plus, when I first visited San Francisco the first couple times, I wasn't very knowledgeable of the city and I looked at it from a very shallow tourist point of view. And I feel like I know a little bit more about that city because I know a few people who live there and I've been there a handful of times now. That I actually have a few like regular spots that I want to go check out again. I used to go to Yosemite a lot when I was a kid. It was almost an annual trip with my mom and my sister. While it was one of my mom's favorite things to do, come to find out later, it was also a fairly inexpensive vacation, and that's why we were able to do it more often than others. But in retrospect, I'm really glad that my mom instilled that in me because it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And I'm really glad that I live close enough to be able to go on a regular basis. Which is also in a way a sad revelation because I don't go on a regular basis. In fact, I haven't been since I think 2001, which sucks. I live like 7 hours, 8 hours away. Fixing that this year. And I'd like to see it become at least annually for me. It'd be nice. But one thing that I never have experienced up there is the snow. I don't know much about where it snows in that area, but I know that it does. And I'd really like to see the snow in the national park. So maybe I'll go again later this year. Or early next year, sometime in the winter. Weird story, the last time I was in Yosemite, pretty sure it was 2001, and was actually where I was on September 11th, which makes my story of where you were a little bit different than most people's, at least most people my age. For most people my age, school was in session, it was a weekday, so they were all in school when they found out, or some were sent home. But I was on vacation with my mom and my sister, and I remember my mom figuring it out later in the day through a news report on a trash truck in Yosemite, hearing it on the radio. And she didn't really believe it, thought maybe he was listening to an audiobook or something. And then later that day, we went to the ranger station, and there was kind of a big panic and everyone had the news on about it. And my mom shielded us from it, didn't want us to really see what was going on yet. And we immediately left the national park and went to a family member's house near Lake Tahoe. And we held up there for a few days. And I remember hearing them talk about it, coming upstairs to see the TV, because the kids, myself, my sister, some of the other kids, were waiting in the basement. Not, I say waiting, that makes it sound terrible. There was a like playroom set up in the basement. We had like video games and stuff and games and whatever down there. But we'd make our way up to ask for food, go to the bathroom, to talk to our parents, to see what was going on. And I mean, it was less than a day before we had figured it out, and then we started talking to our parents about it, but we were young enough to not really grasp the reality of the situation. It's one of those things. Oh, fuck. That's gonna be an interesting video. Oh, man. I rolled my ankle walking down the road. Oh, my God. broke my ankle when I was young, like middle school, and it's never quite healed properly since. So this is quite frequent, which, I mean, it hurts, but there's also enough scar tissue in there now that I don't think it hurts nearly as much as it would have. All right. Man, no better way to completely throw you off course than that. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, I was, on September 11th, I was around 11, which was definitely old enough to understand what was going on, but not quite old enough to have the gravity of the situation really sink in. I remember my biggest fear when all that was going down wasn't what would happen next. What would be the next target? Are we in trouble? Is our future in trouble? And it was more, well, is our vacation over? Can I still go to San Francisco? It didn't seem like that important to me, and the gravity of the situation sunk in over the years. Clearly, as you learn more about it, and as you mature a little bit. But I think it's interesting to be around that age where I don't have a very visceral memory of fear around that time. It kind of just seemed like a hiccup in my vacation, which may sound disrespectful, but I was 11. Most 11-year-olds are fairly disrespectful. All right, I think that's enough about that. Let's not talk about that anymore. When I was driving north from San Diego to Vancouver for college, there was a place I stopped called Hobbiton, USA. It was a walk-through, like, roadside attraction that was based on The Hobbit, the book. This was like pre-movies. When I was there, it wasn't pre-movies. When it was built, it was pre-movies. And it was a trail dug out in the middle of the woods. There were trees that were like maybe 6 feet tall, tree stumps, really, that had been carved out and then hand-painted to resemble the characters of the story. And as you walk through the trail, there'd be these little buttons that you could press that would read to you the story of The Hobbit, as you saw like statues that were recreating moments from the book. Now, unfortunately, Hobbiton closed years ago, even before I got there. I remember I hadn't found anything online about it being closed, but when we showed up, it wasn't just closed, it was kind of abandoned. And there were signs and gates up and everything saying, "Do not enter." Me and my grandmother just straight didn't listen. We hopped over the fences, or busted them open, I don't remember. We got in, and we walked down that trail, and all the speakers were broken, but you could find some of the audio files online at that point, I'm pretty sure. And most of the statues were covered by garbage bags, and we would like take them off, look at them. I don't remember if we took pictures. If we did, I don't know where they are. And then we just cover it back up with the bag. We weren't trying to trash the place. We just honestly wanted to see it. We would have paid for it, but it wasn't open. I'd really like to see if that place is still around, because that was cool. I mean, obviously I'm assuming it's still closed and in worse condition, but I know this time to at least document it if I find it. There was also, on a trip I took up to Portland it was a road trip, I found a water park in the middle of the redwoods. Don't remember where, don't remember what it was called, don't remember off of what freeway, but I would really like to find that place again, because that looked really cool. So I got some research to do. It's funny, I've finally hit a point in my life where I'm in no way whatsoever intimidated by teenagers anymore. It's funny. When I was a teenager, I never felt like I was that cool, so people who I assumed were cooler than me intimidated me. And then for a while, it was almost like this youthful reminder that there are still people out there cooler than you, and like an immaturity that lingered around for a while, that just kind of seeing people that when I was younger, I would have assumed were cooler than me, intimidated me as a young adult. And I was hoping that the transition period would lead to a time where I would see teenagers walking down the street, and I would just kind of assume that they were normal. Nope. I'm already moving into the phase where I look at them as those damn kids. I can't win, because I'm destined to always push teenagers away, which as someone over 18 is probably a good thing. All right, this is sounding real creepy real fast. It was fun, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cool.
Missing someone.